Welcome to the Hard Truth Show, and guys, welcome back to Seven Trumpets Prepper Channel. I know it has been a whopping probably 2 months since we've last spoke on the show. Just some quick notes. I'm going to use the show's time today to actually talk about stuff that I would usually talk about away from the show, because it's just strictly 100% going to be about faith today. It's not prepping related, world related, hardly. I mean, this is just straight up religious based. Faith, yeah, just about our walk in faith, period. So just quick note, although there'll be an advertising slot in the middle of the video today, because I'm using the Hard Truth Show's time slot, please don't knock me on that. Secondly, there's going to be some points that I'm bringing up in this video today that I will be putting out in a future video. Just check on the channel, and it will just actually be content that I normally produce on the channel called The World Calendar. Why I look forward to it happening, or something to that effect is what we're going to call it, because it will make a lot more clear sense here shortly as to some of the content. I'm going to talk about that today. So with that said, guys, to anybody that's followed the show, I apologize for the 2-month, I guess we'd call it sabbatical, stepping away from it, because I've been very busy in the field doing construction, and I've been very busy getting that set up for the Restoring the Foundations conference, and getting that all took care of. So here we are. We're back, and back at it. So what I want to cover today is very, very cut and dry. The thing about it is, guys, is at the end of the day, all right, at the end of the day, most people are 90% servants, all right? And as you can see, for anybody that's followed the show, I moved the table out of the way today because I just want to have a one-on-one conversation with people. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I may die tomorrow, okay? And I just count myself insignificant, like a drop of sand in this sea of people in this world. But one thing has become clear to me, and the conference actually was a scientific experiment for me to reaffirm what I think my mind had already played out for me, is, you know, I had hundreds of people sign up for the conference. And I'm not being up about this, okay? I paid for it, and other people donated, so, you know, it wasn't completely out of my pocket, but for the most part it was. And I don't mind. It's for the kingdom. It's tithing. But what I wondered is if I made an event possible, that I paid everybody's tab, I made sure that the tickets were free, I made sure everyone could come, from rich or poor, free or bond, could be in the building possibly, then would people actually show up and hear these things? Because, you know, for a decade, almost a decade now on this channel, you know, going on, I think this is year 8 or 9. I mean, people's just like, man, I wish there could be an event. I wish there could be this where people could come together and talk, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make that happen. Y'all will. And so then it happened. And almost, I mean, the vast majority of the tickets were taken. There was only like, if everyone had showed up, there'd have been like very little left over, right? And what happened was, day one, I think there were 70 people in the building instead of like 200-ish. So, you know, a little over a fourth maybe. And the next day there was like 50 people in the building, so 1/5 of the capacity. And what it showed me is that there's a multitude of people that said, I'm going to be here, I'm going to support this, but never followed through. Now, you might say, oh, look, this is a video about you ranting about people not coming to a conference you planned. No. Take this as an educational moment. Let's apply this across the broad spectrum, right? So what we have is that out of 100% possibility, 25% committed and actually went through with it, all right? Now, right there in this one example, I've showed you that, like, one of the simplest things people could do is just come together in fellowship, and actually not only that, come to hear the edification of the word. 75%, just in that one little event that I put together, 75% of them was no show. All right, so now I've already got you up to 75%. You can see where I'm working to here. I said the 90% servant, right? Because only 10%, you're really going to get down when I'm done with this. You're going to have the 10% off, okay? Now, as you further filter, you see people that'll go the distance, right? They'll show up for Sabbath, or they'll show up for a conference, or they'll tell you they're going to be there, and they'll commit and they'll follow through, right? Okay, so there's that group that's going to at least do that much. Because see, that's the simplest thing you can do is just show up. If you say you believe you want a fellowship with other people, then all you got to do is just show up, right? So if you're tracking with me, I'm at 75% right here, right? All right, now then it gets into that other 15%. You say, well, Luke, how do you get to a 90% servant? Because these people aren't going to go all the way. You see, they're only going to go so far. Now, what I also learned, and was a good teaching tool to me at the conference, is, I told people at the very beginning, I'm like, if you don't agree with a certain topic or you don't agree with this, because there's so many diverse things being spoke about, for example, is that you can come and go as you please, but just don't be disruptive or disrespectful to people when they're presenting on a certain topic. So, what happens? People go out during certain people's, time slots to speak, and that's fine. That's their business. But it also teaches me something that this is a confirmation to me, just off, like I said, this one event has confirmed for me a lot of things I've seen in bits and pieces across my travels throughout the years and fellowship with people, is that when it comes down to the nitty gritty, a lot of people talk about things like, I'll wear my tzitzit or I won't wear my tzitzit. Some people be like, well, this person eats unclean food. This person don't eat unclean food. You can really fine tune it down, right? To see where people will walk it out or not. But when it really comes down to it, you don't have to go too far. Just start at the foundational pillars. For example, I'll love these because they trigger people. Number one, I'll start with this one because I'm a white guy, right? So I come to the knowledge, I'm son of Japheth, right? So I come to the knowledge that the true Hebrew Israelites are the so-called black men. Now I'd like to pause here for a minute because I'm also doing a video about this in the future, addressing the awakening, the Hebrew Israelites, and the things that I've seen in dealing with this, for a long time now, and being part of trying to help people in that community and stuff, is that there seems to be this idealization of, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Well, congratulations. If you don't keep the commandments and have faith in Mashiach, you're not going to enter in the kingdom anyway. And furthermore, in the days of Ezra, if you weren't able to show who your fathers were, and look in the book of the scroll, they probably wouldn't have accepted you into the people, and the same as goes for in Moshe's day. So I wouldn't be too high, mighty, and proud because your grandfather might have been a Hamite or a Japheth, from Japheth. So just some things food for thought there too. But regardless, it's pretty obvious that the book talks about a people, right? And so when you start talking about the ancient Hebrew Israelites, right? And we start looking at that just from a historical perspective, people drop like flies. I don't want to hear about no black Messiah, blah, 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 all the drama. I'll give you another trigger, is flat earth. I found it very interesting. I was watching at the conference, Brother Josh Keefe's presentation, where I seen people leave their testimony where on his work, on his YouTube channel and emails and comments and stuff he got on his YouTube, where that people, it changed their life learning about the flat earth, because once you figure out we're in a geostationary flat earth under a firmament dome above, you start understanding that there's a divine creator and things aren't what NASA's telling you and the government. So, that's another trigger where people drops off. Holy names, right? You didn't pronunciate it right, so they just lose their mind on you. Here's my favorite, my all-time favorite, is the Father's calendar and his appointed times. I figured it up whenever I think I was introducing Brother Troy Miller. I figured it up. I think there's 17 different ways people keep Shabbat, between F day sundown to SA sundown, SA day Sabbath, SUN day Sabbath, because some people still do that. The lunisolar calendar, scriptural biblical calendar. Some people do the new moon differently. Then of course you got the Enochian, and then you've got the Zadokian. You got all these calendar schemes, right? So anyway, the interesting thing is, and now bringing this up at this point now too, guys, is that the world calendar, if instituted here in the very near future, because they missed that first gap, I think it was around 2015, is that if they get to institute this thing in the very near future with its world days, it's going to mess everybody up on their worship schedule except one group, and that's the people that follow the lunisolar biblical scriptural calendar, right? Because you're going to have world days, and then every leap year, you're going to have a world day in the middle of the year and at the end of the year, which are non-days. So just like the good old folks in American Samoa today that are Seventh-day Adventists that go to church on SUN Day, well, you're going to be in the pickle every year now, not just that one time. And, who would ever thought that the Seventh-day Adventist Church would be going to church on SUN Day? But hey, anything's possible, right? Welcome to the timeline change. So, oh, and hey, a shout out, guys, to Rima Word Clothing. If you want to check this out, this is one of their shirts. I see a false prophet. Great shirt. I had to get me one at the conference to wear here for the show. But guys, these are like pillars of truth, right? These are triggers for people. And what you find is you can usually find middle ground, if not completely online. You can find middle ground, right, with most people. But then you get to the one of them, it's a trigger for somebody. And this is where that other 15% drops off. See, most people, they're easy servants, right? They claim to be in this thing, but they can't even show up for Sabbath, for an event, for fellowship, for the feast days, for a new moon, for nothing. And then, even if you do manage to wrangle them into the herd, then you're going to lose them at some point on fundamental doctrine. We're not, like I said, we're not talking about getting to the real nitty gritty, you know, like, did you wear your zits? Did you not? Blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about foundational truths, especially for those that's awakening into the way. So then you arrive at the point where you've lost 90% of people, okay? And this is why I also believe wholeheartely in a remnant in the last days, because even people that say they're walking out in the way, don't know. You know, ladies and gentlemen, at the conference I read about, you know, in the passage from 2 Esdras about not being weighed down by your sins. And that's something we all need to focus on every day. I want to be purged through and through. I just want to be perfect when the kingdom comes. As a matter of fact, I prayed going down the road the other day. Such an extreme prayer. I was, because I've seen all the stuff going on, and I'm going to actually do something about that on the show coming up, but it's not important. This is the most priority thing right now. As far as starting back the show, I think that you know, we need to go right to the fundamentals. And with that said, what happened was I was going down the road, and I was praying, and I was like, Father, please convert these people. And if you can't convert these people, just destroy them. And when the time comes that you really just cut these people off, and I'm just summarizing what I said in the prayer, is that please, even if it means killing me with them, just make sure you kill them all. But remember me in the resurrection, your servant. That's all I said the other day, and I just let it ride. And because there's all this stuff going on, like the shooting thing in Kennesaw, and it's like, I see lawlessness in the streets, like just lawlessness everywhere. People, it's everywhere anymore. Sometimes it's police, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's both. Just people don't want to do the right thing at all. And I'm just done with humanity, folks. Like, I mean, we've got wickedness all around anymore. And then to compile it, those of us that are in the way can't even come together, okay, at times. With that said, real quick, guys, I'm going to take a quick pause for this month's channel sponsor, and then we'll pick back up in just a second. How far will your U.S. dollar fall once we tally up all the spending and borrowing due to the coronavirus? How will government-mandated business shutdowns affect the economy moving forward? My friends, uncertainty is the enemy that investors and savers alike need to guard against. No one is expected to know the future, and diversification is the proper strategy to combat market instability and geoeconomic uncertainty. Now is the time to take action, protect your long-term buying power. What good are your stock portfolio gains if the profits are in U.S. dollars that are losing value due to inflation and debts? It's like adding air into a tire with a hole in it. Did you know that silver has surged 53% year to date and gold has surged 31% in that same time? U.S. investors can use this little-known IRS qualified loophole that allows Americans to buy gold and silver as a tangible asset through their accredited retirement accounts. Give the good guys at Orion Metal Exchange a call to see what you can do to protect your retirement account. Bank of America is forecasting $3,200 an ounce for gold, respectively. Some experts are calling for gold to double in the next year. Call 866-915-5053 and get your free investment guide today. Orion Metal Exchange is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer. At Orion, you get more metal for your money. Call today or request a free investment kit below. Mention 7 Trumpets Prepper channel on YouTube and ask for details how you can qualify for their current IRA account incentives. Call 866-915-5053 and get your free investment guide today
At Orion, you get more precious metals for your money. And remember to ask about their client-exclusive fee-free buyback policy.
So anyway, what I would say, as far as the time slot that I have left on the show today, now that we've started this thing back for this month, is that, most of the time I come on here on the Hard Truth Show, and we're talking about something worldly, or or not so much worldly, but things that's going on in our world, right? Current events, stuff like that. So you can see for sure we're living in the last days. But what really needs to come back to center is those of us that believe we're living in the last days and say that we fellowship with one another. When are we all ever going to come together? I've been to fellowship with a lot of people over the years, and Joe Blow can't get along with Bob, and Karen can't get along with Judy. And, it's like there's so few of us left. Why does there always have to be drama? And if people really say they love y'all, especially leaders, they say that they're leaders and they stand for the kingdom, and they're pastors and mores and missionaries and apostles and teachers and scholars. I'm just a simple guy over here. If I can be willing to sit down and look at the scripts and say at the end of this, if the thus saith Yahuwah is there, I'm going to walk it out. Why can't everyone else get on that page? You see, one of the most interesting things to me today is that after a decade in the walk, like one of the last things I pointed out was the calendar, right? Is that on the Father's calendar, nobody has explained to me this day, no pastor, no teacher, no scholar, no nothing, has explained to me. Now, when I say nobody has explained this to me, I mean in opposition. It's obvious the support for it's easy to explain, but in opposition is no one has ever explained to me which day at the Battle of Jericho was the Sabbath, because we don't war on Sabbath, we don't work on Sabbath, and that's simply across the board. Everyone, the first book of Maccabees talks about they were being killed because they wouldn't even war on Sabbath. So they even resolved at that point they were going to, just to save their lives, because it was getting clean out of hand. So my question to be asked then is, if all 7 days, none of them were Sabbath, then that explains right there, the 88th chapter of the book of Yasher, that the new moon day started the battle. So there's no prohibition of walking around on new moon day, let alone not to war. And then 6 work days they continued, and the next day was a Sabbath, because there's 4 Sabbaths in every moon, and you either have a 29 or 30 day month. And this is simple mathematics. This is just simple stuff, and nobody's never explained this to me. You see what I'm saying? But they have separated their company with me because of that. And so at the end of the day, whether it's true Hebrew, who is the true descendants of Abraham, how do we pronounce the Father's name, how do we worship, what day do we worship, people never want to come to a conclusion on the matter. They just want to be like, I'm better than you, or they don't want to lose their following. It's funny, I've never been challenged to a debate on the Father's calendar in, now I think this is 8 years that I'm on this channel. Nobody's ever challenged me to it, because you don't want none of that. And it's not because you don't want none of me. I'm a nobody. It's because that one question alone has went unanswered for years. And there's only one answer, and the scripture gives it. Joshua 5, Yasher 88. I mean, it's plainly laid out. But at the end of the day, most people cannot let go of, there comes a point where that when I say a 90% servant, they'll only go that 90%. They will not go the other 10% to the goalpost. And so then, within the walk, within the way, you have all these cliques and divisions and groups and fellowships that won't get along with each other, and people label this one a cult, and then over here, instead of talking about the Father's calendar or the Father's name, we want to fight about polygamy, because that seems to be a current conversation going on. And then of course, you got Hebrew Israelites that want to hate on the white guy. This is another example of 90%. Okay, because I hammered the calendar. Let me show you something from the Hebrew Israelite community, right? I want to see Israel woke up. I want to see Israel restored. I want to see it back to the place of glory, being a lighthouse to the nations, right? Now, there's my blanket statement, right? The other day, someone that follows me on Facebook that is a Hebrew, well, from the best I could tell, is Hebrew Israelite, made it a point to finally acknowledge to me that the only reason they have issue with me, it's not because of what I believe, what I stand for, none of that. It's just because I'm white. Now, there's racism, right? You see, I have gotten to a level in life where I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but I see things on such a deeper perspective than I used to. You see, it's not a white and black thing anymore, folks. It's not even a Hebrew Gentile thing anymore. It's just wickedness versus goodness. And a lot of people, as a Hebrew Israelite brother that I love as if he was my brother, and we're very close. Matter of fact, next Sabbath, we're getting together to spend Sabbath together. Would have this Sabbath, but he got in a spot, and bless his heart, I'm so glad that the bees didn't cause him to have an EpiPen. He got in a spot there, but I'll praise to him that the Most High that he's okay. I'm glad he didn't get injured. But anyway, here's the deal. That brother told me recently, and I about fell over. He said, you know, Luke, he said a lot of people that are Hebrew Israelites, keep in mind this is a Hebrew, said that most people doing this thing because it's a trend, you know? And I was like, wow. I was like, makes sense. You know, I'm like, a lot of people won't, even me, you know, I as much as I don't mind care about being around people, is that I want to feel like I belong to something at times. I want to feel like accepted, you know, if that makes sense, like that I belong. But at the, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, Noah was alone in this thing. You know, I'm like, Joseph was alone at times in this thing. I'm like, a lot of the good men that loved Yah were alone in this thing. And I'm like, I don't expect to be any different come toward the very end. And people to be part of the club, part of the clique, and to get along with everybody else, or to, you know, pastor worship. I'll get into pastor worship and moray worship in a minute. But it feels like to me, oh, I said the word feel. It appears from all evidence gathered that to me as a person, that people care more about the status and love of men than the truth of Yah. Because if they did actually care, there would not be 1,000 different camps and and then among Gentiles, all these different groups and fellowships. There wouldn't be all this. There would be one unified body. You see, I feel like that, there I said feel again, it appears from the best evidence gathered that there was Rome, the great whore Babylon, and then, you know, people's like, I ain't dealing with this mess no more. And they come out of that, and there's all the churches, the harlot daughters, as if you've seen in my presentation that pointed that out at the conference. And then the people that come out of that have tried their best to assimilate and walk in the way. But the problem is that many of the voices that are that claim to be in the way will only go 90% of the way, and shame on the ones that would be willing to go 100%. You know, there's people out here today that if we really want to go, now I want to go to the 100 percentile. Okay, this last 10 minutes of the show today, guys, I want to go to the last 10 percentile. There is those of us, such as myself, that over the years I have been hated for being quiet, yet trying to walk in the way, because I ain't one of the people of the book. I have been hated on because I don't go to SAT Day church like everybody else, because SUN Day people are wicked. But yet, SAT Day, when Israel was in apostasy throughout the book, worshipped SATURN, or should I say STUR, or Refan and Chiun and all the hidden one and Molech and all this. I mean, like, it always goes back. Father, please forgive me for saying false deities, but like, dude, like, when you really start hashing away that last 10 percentile, it costs something. It actually costs something. You know, you put seats on and you go in your employer and they're like, what's that string on your pants? You look ridiculous. You know, that was Karen, by the way, Bob's husband, because Bob and Karen, they're the haters at the workplace, right? And I'm just messing. I'm just making somebody up, right? But there's always these people. There's this one person at the workplace that was always like, I mean, somebody walked up to me one time, pulled my seat. Was like, oh, you got string stuck on your pants. I'm like, no, bro. That's my seats to remind me to keep the 10 Commandments. But see, like, you'll see pastors and teachers and elders and all these people stand up and deliver a message. They ain't even got a seat on. They ain't even got a seat on. It is the simplest task to do. And they can't get it done. You just can't make this stuff up. The calendar. I ask people all the time, tell me about that battle at Jericho, baby. Tell me which day was Sabbath. Crickets. I'm like, Mashiach was black. He was a dark man. Tell me how Moshe blended in with the black Hamite Egyptians. Silence. You know, like the Father set apart name. I'm like, all right. Let's go Psalm 68:4. Right there is the short form, Yah. I'm like, can we just settle out and say praise to the Most High, Yah? Can we just leave it at that and still be friends? Because obviously I didn't have a proper pronunciation the direct way you want. You see, people just can't get that last 10% out of their system. They get to 90 and that's it. That's the end of the line. I see it all the time. And like I said, if we backpedal, getting people to fellowship, actually getting them into a fellowship assembly, actually showing up, supporting one another. And that's why I'm saying it's not a conference. I'm using this as a scientific educational thing. You see, this conference is still paying dividends afterwards, right? So I'm saying getting people to show up, getting people to support one another, getting people to actually follow through with what they say. That's 75%, right? I just done the math earlier in the video, I got to 75%. Right now, the last 15% is right here. You just fundamental. I'm on fundamental doctrine. Now, if we really started shaving it, guys, I'd say we could get below 10, but I don't want to go below 10, okay? Maybe that's my 90 percentile stop on the 90 percentile servant, because if we keep hashing on this thing, there's going to be very few good people left, right? And I want you to understand that I'm not saying that we all don't sin and fail and stumble and give in to temptation at times, stuff like that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all striving for the kingdom, and if we're all honest with one another, we're going to be fighting that thing right to the very end. But what I'm getting at is simple things that should have long been ironed out. Wait till the world calendar gets put in place, because I'm going to do a video about this, right? Just wait till that world calendar gets put in place. I cannot wait for the explanations from your pastor why you are still going to church on F day sundown to SA day sundown, or you're still doing this or you're still doing that, when you yourself know that if it's 7777, you have literally hit the wall with that world calendar, because the next year it's going to be on SU day, and then if there's a leap year, then it's that skip EMT. You're on like T or W day, you know. And I try not to say the pagan days of the week anymore, but you see what I'm saying? This is the issue that people cannot digest, and it's why that I think that it's the best. And I will say think, because at right now, until I can come to a full thesis on this thing, I believe it is the best explanation is just call people a 90% servant, because I think there are going to be a lot of the people that's going to go up one day and I say, and you know, say to Mashiach, I done things in your name, I done all this in your name, look what I done, blah blah blah, and he's going to be, I never knew you. You know, you're like, why'd you never know me? Well, let me see, did you miss the part where it said remember the Shabbat day and keep it set apart? Not SAT day, not SUN day, not the Roman pagan calendar, none of that garbage, not the world calendar coming up, but my Sabbath, right? Did you miss the part where that I had to set apart people and you mistreated them? You know, because like in Second Baruch, it talks about that there will be those spared throughout the nations that did not mistreat Israel, but those that knew them and, you know, mistreated them, they're going to be destroyed. Like, this is not rocket science. This is clear-cut doctrine, you know. And what is embarrassing, I think the most embarrassing and damning evidence, and I'm not cursing on there, I mean literally this is damning evidence against people in their ministries, is that for me to just be an individual, okay, that used to be a deacon in a church and come out and just say, you know what, I'm just a servant at this point, I just want to be here to serve, I'm just an individual trying to walk it out for the kingdom, is when that you can literally just sit here and say, well, here's this right here in the scripture, and there's no other explanation but one thing. And that's the simplest. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you cannot count from 1 to 7 on the Battle of Jericho, I can't help you right now. And I'm not meaning to be rude or disrespectful. I'm serious. Like, this is a 1 to 7 calculation, okay? I do massive calculations every day doing construction. We're just talking 1 to 7. All right? A child can count this. And if you can't figure out that there's a statistical anomaly there where that none of those days should be Sabbath, because Sabbath, there's no war conducted, and you still arrive back at that you're going to church on SAT day or SUN day or using the Roman pagan Gregorian calendar, I can't help you. Y'all follow what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, and the last thing I would ask everyone to do, and myself included, as that I try to do this internal assessment every day, because I don't want to be remembered as a narcissist or branded cluster B or any crazy thing like that. We all need to internally check ourselves every day. Is that the more and more time passes by, is that the question to be asked is, am I being a 90% servant? And I'm going to tell y'all what, there was times that I have been a 90% servant, and I don't want to be that guy. If I find more truths, if there's another truth brought before me today, all right, show me the scripts. And I find 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 witnesses, bro, I'm in. I mean, 2 will sell me, but I want to make sure that the doctrinal stance on that's cut and dry, and that's why I'm telling you right now that you cannot just lean on, if you can't walk up to your pastor, the things that I've just brought up today. And obviously, like I said, the table's gone. Here I am, just face to face. And if we could talk in person, I would, right? But the questions that I've asked today are simple questions, especially about the Father's appointed times, my mercy. If you cannot feel comfortable approaching your pastor or teacher, elders, friends, family, and asking these questions, then you're already in a bad spot, because you should question everything and prove all things and hold fast that which is good. And I don't need nobody's approval to tell me what to do for the thus saith Yahuwah. That supersedes all titles and status and everything that comes with it. I didn't leave out of SUN Day Babylon and SAT Day Seventh-day Adventist Church Babylon to walk back into the way and go back to doing Babylon. Are we going to do it all or none at all? Guys, I could be a really good pagan out here. I really could. I could go to sporting events. I could spend all my money on drinking and licentiousness and travel and what is the proper word? Sexual debaucheries, I think, would be the right word. I'm trying to keep this from being profane. Gambling. Now, I don't care for idolatry. I just think even if I was a pagan, I wouldn't even want no part of idolatry. I'm just trying to think, all this stuff I could be, right? But I choose willfully and wanting to serve the Most High Yah and keep His commands entailed in that book right there behind me, okay? That's what I want to be remembered as. Now, the Most High may decide not to let me in the kingdom. He may be like, Luke, now, you done to the best of your knowledge to be 100% servant. But at the end of the day, my son, you know where you slip. And, if He don't let me in, guys, I can't say nothing to that. I'm not the Most High. But what I can say to you is this, is that, Scripture plainly says, to him that knoweth to do better and doeth it not, to him is sin. Woe be to them that call evil good and good evil, right? So when we consider upon these matters, you need to ask 2 last questions I'm going to leave with you. Is you need to ask yourself, number 1, am I going 100% or just 90? And if you say, I think I may not be going 100%, the next question you need to ask yourself, is that because that the people that I hold in esteem, or my circle, or my family, are only going that 90%? Because if they're only going that 90%, maybe it's time to cut them loose. This has been the Hard Truth Show, guys. And until we see you again on the next edition, when we're back in it on normal circumstances and normal conversation on up and coming world events and where we're at in the history of humanity, I thought this would be a great start back out, because there is many of you out there that I think that this could be a help to. And guys, as always, until we see you again here at the Hard Truth Show on Seven Trumpets Prayer Channel, hope the Most High Yah Baruch you and keep you, make His face shine upon you, show you favor, and give you shalom, my friends. In Yahushua's name.